'07. And not long after we took office, we started to really begin to experience problems with the finances. We found a lot of issues that were not at the surface prior to the election. And it's something we had to roll up our sleeves and deal with. And I'll give you some examples. And a number of people have asked me, and I'd like to hit it head on about the taxes. Last year's taxes, why did you go up on the taxes? And you know, some people have given me a tough time about it. And I said, listen to what you're saying. I was in office less than 6 months having to make that decision. That's the last thing I want to do in my first term as mayor. But what we found was a habit of credit card spending by the previous administration, with all kinds of bills that were not paid, contracts signed that were not funded, and I can run down a number of them. All the public employee contracts, he signed contracts with, didn't fund them. It was $1.7 million. A debt service line in the budget was underfunded. It was a mistake made by $1.7 million. He used, during election year in '07, a political tax rate. He used $2 million out of reserves to offset the tax rate. That creates $2 million you have to come up with next year. There's another $2 million. He signed a deal with Honeywell, which when I stood beside him in debate said, the savings from this project will pay for the project. It's not going to cost us a dime. I get into office, before June 30th, we had to find $1.4 million for principal and interest on the Honeywell payments. For the first budget, July 1, we had to find $2.7 million from principal and interest, plus $687,000 for maintenance contract, all for a program that wasn't going to cost us any money. None of this was talked about openly in '07. He created a sewer and water enterprise fund, essentially taking all the expenditures of our sewer and water operation off of the taxpayers and assigning all expenditures to you as ratepayers, which is an admirable thing to do. It's recommended in municipal finance today. Here was the problem, though. After assigning all the direct costs and what it costs to do that, and that means here what we pay the MWRA for water, what we pay the MWRA for sewerage, and what we pay our personnel in our water and sewer departments, that's all direct costs. Then you're allowed to assign some indirect costs. The purchasing agent, for example, part of that salary will be attributed to water and sewer because part of her time is committed to procurement for sewer and water. About $3.8 million worth of indirects are acceptable. The mayor assigned $8.8 million in indirect costs. What he did was he took $5 million off the tax levy to have a nice tax at election time without having to go up in the taxes and move that over to the ratepayers. Now, a month into office, I get a call from the Department of Revenue from the state saying you're going to have a shortfall of $4 million in your sewer and water enterprise, and you've overestimated what you can do with your indirects. Well, I didn't do that, but as the newly elected mayor, I had to deal with it. So we had to take $5 million off sewer and water and assign that back to the tax levy. We had to take all those unfunded commitments to sign that over. You're in the $12 to $13 million range you had to deal with. Now, we made cuts. We made $4 million in cuts all the while, in addition to righting the ship financially. My bond counsel was saying to me, if you don't do this and get this right, the city's bond rating is going to drop. That's not a good signal for Wall Street. We had a lot of issues to deal with. We hit them head on. I was the first mayor in history to go to the city council at budget time and say what the tax rate would be based on that budget. Never been done before. We do it backwards in government. We pass the budget and then we worry about how we're going to raise the money. And the tax rate is set in the fall. And that's the way it is. That's the way it is throughout the Commonwealth. I laid it out right from the beginning at the budget time what it looked like. And it wasn't pretty, but we hit it head on. We shared with the public, with the city council, here's the books, take a look at. And there were a lot of problems. We spent our first 6 months to a year straightening out what was left behind. And then, of course, the economic climate didn't help matters. The state cut out local aid drastically. We lost $2.3 million this past year, and this year we're taking a cut of over $6 million local aid cuts. It's been very, very challenging to keep the finances